All right, welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the delay last week, or the no-show. I was in the middle of a move, and yeah, somewhere along the way, my dog gave my homework, and there was some sort of act of God. Anyways, interesting week. Got married this week. Quite unplanned, actually, and I'm super happy. Super happy. So if I'm emanating in glow from the screen, just that's what it is. It's a glow. Anyways, today we're gonna dig into the next phase of the hero's journey on trials and helpers, and this is the phase where folks in on their own journey tend to things get really scary. I mean, everything before is just kind of, sort of scary. This is where it gets for real scary. This is when real money is exchanged, real time is exchanged, uncomfortable conversations may be had. They've already crossed the threshold. They're into the unknown. All right. So we're going to dig into what that looks like inside the hero's journey, and then adapt it to business and do some writing. All right. A little recap of the hero's journey. Number one, we say this in every single video. You are not the hero. The hero is your dream prospect, your client, your customer, your influencers. You are more of a mentor, an ally who helps them on their journey to get the elixir, which is your product or service. It's the lightsaber. So this hero gets called to an adventure. They usually are like, oh no, I don't want to do it. It's too scary. Then they meet a mentor, usually you, who says, hey, I've been through this a million times. I know it's scary. I'm going to walk you through it. Everything's going to be all right. Then they get to a point, and this is what I covered in my pre-recorded session last week, where they need to cross the threshold from the old world, not the bad world, but the normal baseline, the devil world that they come from, and cross over into the unknown world, which is the world that is your normal world. All right. In this case, you're almost like their tour guide, for lack of a better term. Now, in this phase of the hero's journey, this is where all the action happens. This is typically act 2 of a movie. So in a film is typically broken up into 3 acts. The second act is when someone started their adventure, and that's when all the action happens. That's when Indiana Jones is trying to get past the guards and get through all the booby traps to get the next prize. And one of the things that's coupled with the trials portion of the hero's journey is a helper. And the helper isn't necessarily a human. It's not necessarily a human. And we're going to get into that a bit. All right. My favorite visual of the trials is from Shrek, actually. So Shrek was the reluctant hero, and Donkey was his ally, and a herald as well. It's like, hey, you need to, we got to do something, right? And he first says no, so he refuses the call. Then finally, the stakes are raised. Lord Farquaad says, hey, I'll give you back your swamp if you just rescue this princess for me. So yeah, it's scary, but you get your swamp back, and the squatters will be gone. And I think the most stark visual is when they're actually crossing the bridge together. and that is where their trial actually truly begins, is when they're actually facing the fear, and now they're actually in it. They've crossed the threshold. They're over the lava. They're feeling the heat. They're feeling the fear. And even for a small transaction, even for a small thing, there's usually some level of anxiety and fear. That's part of the gig. All right. I'm talking even someone filling out a survey. There's a level of anxiety and fear. So even though it may seem like we're going through a lot of micro steps here, understand that, in the human psyche, that this is all stuff that's happening behind the scenes, usually subconsciously and sometimes very consciously. Now, helpers could be friends. It could be you as a mentor. In a larger company, it could be the account manager or the onboarding specialist, or it could be the expert. So it could be a human. It could be you, could be someone on your team, could be a colleague, a shared friend, someone that's going to help them through. Or it could be a map. It could be an object. Now, this object isn't necessarily the elixir. This isn't the lightsaber. This is more of, here's the map on how I'm going to get there. In the latest Star Wars movies, the map was one of the central elements. That there are missing parts of this map, and they needed that map to help them go through these trials of finding Luke so they could actually defeat the bad guys. We need to find Luke, all right? My favorite example, of course, is the Goonies, where Goonies is one of the things that one of my favorite movies growing up, and so much of the reason that movie has withstood the test of time and is so quoted it was masterful storytelling. The story structure in that film was perfect. It was perfect. I think it was Christopher Columbus and Steven Spielberg, both masters, but they were both young in their careers too. But it was a hero's journey from the beginning to the very end. And it was masterfully done as well because each of the characters had their own arc too. So that's something to keep in mind, is that that even though you're not the hero in this sort of process, you are a character in their story, but you're also a character in your own story. So I could talk about that for hours. We're not going to get into that quite yet. But just something to consider, that each of these folks are on their own arc, they're on their own journey, they're in a different phase of it, and that could be translated as a different phase of the sales cycle as well. All right, in business, we're going to take a look at what happens after they say yes, after they convert. So you're a photographer. All right, I know Charlie's on this call now. And I was like, yeah, I'll do the free consult. And then you help them over the threshold. It's like, okay, here's what to expect, blah, blah, blah. You get them on the call. They have the call. So in some cases, this framework that we're going to look at today of the trials and the helper is how you could structure the kind of words you could use on that free consult call or that initial call. It could also be used in your messaging after the call. I mean, some folks in their businesses, that first call is very, very much just getting to know you. And then you're talking the money in the business and the follow-up. In my consult calls, we typically spend probably less than 2 minutes on getting to know you. Let's get into the problem. And then in a more of transactional deal where it's, setting up an interview or hitting them up for a different kind of favor, something or hitting them up for an introduction to someone else in their organization, it's all fuzzy stuff. So it can be adapted in a lot of different ways. The ones I want to zoom in on today is when we end in a situation where somebody says, all right, I'm ready. Yes. And they trip at the finish line. They're like, oh my goodness, they're so close to actually like getting into my sales funnel, and they're totally going to bail now. Like I need to get them back in, and there's a moment of panic, especially if it's so there's a lot of money on the table, or there is or it's someone you've been chasing for a while, or you're just starting out and it might be your first client ever, your first customer ever. So here's some of the ineffective things, and I see this. I actually pulled these out of emails that I've gotten and follow-up emails that I've gotten. I was like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make the call. Sorry. So I had backed out of a sales call, and it was for a legitimate reason. This just happened about a month ago because I was in the middle of like crazy amount of stressful time in my life. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to talk to a stranger and be mean to them today. So I could not tolerate it. Hey, the calls only take 15 minutes. Or, hey, you know, there's 100% risk-free money back guarantee, and all those cheesy cliche things that people say. Now, the reason that we want to avoid that is a few things. One, when you're helping someone out, if you're the helper, you cannot sound desperate. So in this phase of the hero's journey, there's like, hey, they're taking the step. They need to be the one to take the step. You can't take the step for them. You can't pick up the phone for them. So they've crossed the threshold. They may be on the bridge, like in that photo of Shrek and Donkey, right? They may be on the bridge over the lava, like, I ain't thinking about backpedaling right now. This is not what I signed up for. And at any stage, someone could return. And that's one of the aspects of the hero journey that we'll get into in later videos. But desperation is not what you want in a helper. If you're sitting over hot lava, desperation is not going to work. Trying to be like, oh my goodness, everything's fine, is also not going to work. Because desperation, it doesn't instill confidence that you actually know what you're doing. And overconfidence, or like, oh, there's no hot lava there. It's like, dude, like I'm blistered. My feet are blistering right now. What are you talking about? This is not okay. So those are the two extremes, but I see them all the time. And I myself have been guilty of them. So one of the things that you could do is, and these are just a couple of scenarios, and we'll get into some other options during the rewrites, is we could look at the micro steps involved. It's like, hey, between now and the call, well, yeah, no, rescheduling is totally fine. If you have any questions between now and the call, just shoot me an email. So you are calm. You're still talking business. So you're not letting them out of it. You're not like, oh yeah, see ya. You know, you canceled on me. How dare you? You no-showed. How dare you? You canceled the meeting. How dare? No, I know. It's like, oh no, it's, life happens. So I'll just get it rescheduled. But offering them something in the in-between. And oftentimes what that does is like, hey, let's do a few jumping jacks to warm up before the workout. Let's stretch out first. Let's, in sports, let's visualize the game first. The people actually do that because it's helpful. It helps people work through the fear. It helps them make it concrete and less unknown. Another one, instead of throwing guarantees at people, and guarantees, there is a space for that. Like guarantees do work. Like A/B test after A/B test, campaign after campaign. It works. It works on a landing page. It works on the purchase page. Like right where that buy now button is. It does not work in conversation. You would not say that to somebody on a phone call. You could, but it would likely have the opposite intended effect. All right. So one of the tactics you could take is, hey, worst case scenario, like worst case scenarios, I'll point you to some free tools, or I'll get you set up with a good interim solution. Like for example, if you're trying to get an event booked, like we had a client in LA booking out an event recently. They're trying to get an event booked, and uh, like get butts in seats. And it's like, it's a pretty awesome show. Like, make sure you grab your seat. Like, these typically sell out. So make sure you grab your seat. If something happens, like if there's like you get sick or something, yeah, I'll give you your money back. But like, it's pretty awesome. So you could handle it a lot more conversationally and just let them know, like, the worst that's going to happen is you get a little sunburn. That's the worst. Okay. And that's true. Now, there are certain cases that when I'm talking to a client, hey, the worst that could happen is the campaign will completely blow up and we will have a big list of ways of doing this. We have a big list of things that don't work. And then we have 8 more tactics we could try out. I actually have to have that conversation almost every single day, letting him know that, yeah, you may lose $800 this week working on this. So it's my job to frame it as like, but you still need to go through with it. Yeah, now your favorite pants might be singed a little bit going over the lava, but this is necessary to get the fancy pants. Wow, sorry, the fancy pants on the other side of the bridge. All right.